Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Daphne, I'm a cosplayer. I usually do Disney and musical theater cosplays, and I thought I'd try out YouTube. So, thank you for being here with me. This is going to be an adventure. We'll see how it goes. My next project is going to be two dresses from Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses. I say two dresses because I usually cosplay with my sister Iris. So I'm going to be Courtney and she's going to be Delia, and I'm making both of our dresses. As much as I would love to start on pretty fabric and big skirts, I do have to start on unicorns. So for that project, that means starting with the corset. Now I do have a corset I use with most of my princess dresses. It's this one. It's 1840s, 1850s, I believe. It's great, especially if you have big voluminous skirts. But the skirts that we're making aren't that big, so they won't be that heavy. So a corset like this won't be necessary, and I don't think it will give me the proper silhouette. Because here's the thing with this corset, it has really sharp hip spring, which is great, but not what we're looking for. If you look at the actual dresses from the movie, their silhouette is very gradual, it's very subtle. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. Now, for the pattern, I have a couple of options. What I'm probably going to do, I have a red threaded corset pattern with the right silhouette. It's a size medium, which might be too small, but I think we'll be fine. I'm fairly squishy. What I could also do is draft my own corset pattern. I've done that once with very little success and very little knowledge. I'm currently in school to learn, among other things, pattern drafting. So in theory, I think it should be doable, and it sounds kind of fun, but it also sounds like a lot of work. I have to make two. I think I'll lose my sanity if I have to draft them both. So probably not going to happen, but it's an option. I also have a couple of free corset patterns that a friend sent me a while ago. I might take a look at those, see if any of those look better than the red threaded. We'll see. It's probably going to be the red threaded. As much as I would love to just make the corset, get it over with, and start on pretty things, I do think I'll have to make a mock-up, which is fine. I don't love it. It's a lot of work, but for corsets, it's pretty essential. I might still have some cotton canvas. If I do, I'll use that. If I don't, I'll just use cotton. I know that's not what you're supposed to do with a corset, because in the end, I'll be using a couture, which is very different from a regular cotton. However, I've done it before, it works, and it's free.
Postponing the fabric dilemma, my first task was to find a pattern. After taking far too long deciding what I want to listen to, I started looking at the free patterns as well as the red threaded pattern. I had already decided I was not going to make a pattern myself. I have to say though, I was pleasantly surprised by the free patterns. I didn't have a lot of expectations. Next came assembling the pattern. If you've never worked with PDF patterns before, I'll quickly explain because they can look really intimidating, but it's not that complicated. You have to print out all the sheets and then tape them together either in individual pattern pieces or in one big sheet with all the pattern pieces on it. Usually a pattern will come with instruction how to assemble the pattern itself. With this corset pattern, every piece took up 2 sheets of paper and you'll get the individual pieces instead of one big sheet. It's a little less paper efficient, but I personally prefer it this way because it's just a bit easier. And I say this was easy, and for the most part it was, but as you can see, I struggled a lot with the tape. An unreasonable amount, really. Guess that's on me for buying the cheap stuff.
I just cut out all of the pattern pieces, which wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Still not great. I kind of want to start on the mock-up, but I'm getting really tired. Also, the lighting is not great. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go downstairs, I'm gonna chill and play with my dog, and then we'll see. Knowing myself, this is not gonna happen today. But I also really want to get that mock-up done so that maybe tomorrow I can start on the actual thing. That would be nice. I don't know. I have a couple of health issues, which means I can't work as much as I would like on a day. A couple of years ago, I would have been able to crank this out in a day, maybe two, if the mock-up was particularly annoying. That's not happening. I wish it was, but it's not happening. So we'll see. At least I got everything cut out, taped together, so that's ready to go. And then we'll see if I get anything done today. Not sure if I'm gonna record it. I'll let you know. Hello, it's the next day, and I actually did make the mock-up yesterday. Oh, did not see that coming. It's not entirely complete. I just sewed together the seams and put on the boning channels. For the final portions, I will be putting the boning channels on the seams, like the pattern indicates. But for fitting corset, it's actually easier to put them on the middle of your panels instead of on the seams, so you can alter your seams and actually access them. Which is great because I didn't try this on yet, but I did quickly put it around me and I noticed it was way too big. So I took half a centimeter out of each seam, which may be too much, we'll see. I think it's gonna be fine. So what I have to do now, I have to put on boning channels and I have to put in holes in the back so I can actually close this. Also, yes, I know this would be easier to show you if I had two hands to use. However, I bought the cheapest microphone I got and it doesn't work if I pin it to my shirt. But I'm gonna quickly do that and then we're gonna try it on. Here's a quick tip when you're working with plastic boning, or in my case, plastic whalebone, synthetic whalebone. They're usually bent because they come off the roll, which is fine, but it's also a little bit annoying to work with. You can reshape these with heat. So the easiest way would just be get your iron, steam them. Cool. I'm too lazy to get my iron though, so I use my hands. I'm gonna try to show you without messing up the sound. And just like that, you have a piece of boning that's way straighter than it used to be before. It does hurt your hands after a little while, but again, I'm too lazy to get my iron right now. I am actually pleasantly surprised. Yeah, it's fitting quite well. I think, when you look at the back, I think I have a little bit too much space to the left in the corset. So what I'll do, I'll just take a little bit out of the back panel. I think that will just do the trick. I also have a little bit of space left over here at the bottom, so I'm just gonna pin that in and adjust that on the pattern. But otherwise, I mean, I think it's good to go. Very tentative to say that, but it's just looking good. Can't quite say if it's comfortable yet. I think it is, but I'm being poked by boning everywhere because I forgot to close off the boning channels, which is also causing a little bit of weird wrinkling here at the back. But when I straighten that out, it behaves the way I would expect it to behave. Only thing I'm wondering if maybe the waist is a little bit too low, which would make sense because I've had patterns from Red Threaded before, and with those patterns, the waist in the back was too high as well. I'm actually seriously doubting if I need to readjust the waist, actually. You know, if I'm smart, I would close off the boning channels and try it on again. Not entirely sure that I'm smart. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I closed off the boning channels, and unsurprisingly, it's a lot better. Did you know that not having boning poke into you makes a corset way more comfortable? This is an educational channel. Yeah, I'm really liking the fit. I don't think I have to do anything about the waist. It's looking good now. I say that, and I'm immediately noticing some wrinkles in the waist. I don't know if I can show you properly, but about here. It is maybe half a centimeter, maybe a centimeter. So I think I will adjust the pattern back there. I'm gonna pin this, and then we'll see how it fits. I made those adjustments. I don't know if you can see quite well, but I took, I think, about a centimeter out of the front on both sides. I've made a couple of corsets by now, and proportionally speaking, I have a fat stomach, so you usually have room left over in the front here. That's the nice thing about doing it several times. At some point, you just know your body. Just like the adjustment in the back, I kind of expected I had to do that. In all honesty, I thought it was going to be a bigger adjustment. As you can see, I've drawn some lines here. They're not perfect or anything, but that gives me a clue about what I need to change. So I'm going to take this off. I'm either going to trace this or trace the original corset pattern and then make my adjustments.
Looking at the markings on my mockup, I realized the adjustments were fairly minimal, so I decided to trace the pattern as that's going to be more accurate than tracing the mockup. And with so little adjustments, it wouldn't be a bother to measure and copy those either instead of just tracing them. I probably could have mixed both methods if I really wanted to, but this worked fine for this project. I have transparent pattern paper, so I could just put the pattern pieces under it and trace them that way. I kept the edges the same, but changed the seam allowance from 1.5 cm to 2 cm, because I want to do felt seam. Plus, this way it was less work. Tracing pattern pieces takes up enough time as it is. Not that I mind, I actually find it quite relaxing. I can just put on something to listen to and then work away.
I'm aware this angle kind of sucks, but that's what we're gonna have to do. Anyway, if you look at what I drew on the mock-up, you can see this is curved. I don't think I can make it curved on the actual pattern because I have to close this up. I don't see how I'm gonna close a curved line onto a straight line without switching around a whole lot with everything else going on. So I'm currently debating what I can do. I can extend it a little bit into the side piece, and that will make it so that this at least is higher. The thing is, when I tried the mock-up on, I didn't see any wrinkling in the waist on the side. So I'm not sure that's the best way to go. I can just leave this as is. It is something, but I don't know. I don't want to go through all this trouble just to have it not quite right. And I'm not going to make another mock-up. I just don't want to do that. I think I'm going to extend it to the side. I think that will be fine. The other thing is as well, this looks quite drastic right now, and I'm not loving that. So I think I will extend it a little bit into the sides, like maybe halfway there, and even this out so it's a little bit more gradual. I think that's a good idea. Oh no, wait. If I extend it halfway into this pattern, then this would close up, but I don't want this to open up. Somewhere that's gonna have to give. And I'm sure someone professional would be like, oh yeah, no, there's a way to do that, but I don't know that way. So in hindsight, I don't think I'm gonna do this at all. I'm just gonna stick with this and hope that it's fine. To make this a little bit less extreme, I could shorten it a bit here and make this more gradual, because this is just taking a piece out. However, I think that would be even more inaccurate. The other thing I could do is, instead of saying I'll go half this piece, start here and make it very gradual. I'm not the biggest fan of that though, because you can see even when it's not on me, you can see the wrinkles that were here, and they just burnt any here. I could also, this is going to be a headache. Okay, so if I take a slice out of this, it's going to have to come from somewhere. I could open this up and then slice it right back from the side. I do think that's the neatest solution. I'm not sure if that's the solution I'm going to go with, but you know what? It's almost lunchtime anyway, so I'm gonna stop now. I'm gonna have lunch. I'm gonna walk my dog. I'm gonna give my brain some time to think about it, and then maybe I'll come up with a great solution, or maybe I'll find the motivation to do it the proper way, because I do think what I just said is the proper way. And maybe it's not as bad as I think it is. Maybe it will be easy, but yeah. Okay, we're once again not working with the best angle, but I came back from lunch. I decided I am going to do the proper way, and I want to show you how. So I think this is the best setup for that right now. So what I just quickly did, for this one I heightened where this line was going to end up, and then I took that same measurement and put it here. I drew a line between the waist marks, measured halfway, and then continued that angle. There is probably a correct way to do this, involving taping the patterns together, but I couldn't be bothered. I just eyeballed it, and I think it looked really good. So we're just going to go with that. What I also did was I drew a line straight down from here, and on a spare piece of pattern paper, I quickly copied this. So that way I have a reference for exactly what it's sort of supposed to look like in the end. I know I have the original pattern under here as well, but things might shift. I did do some alterations, some simple alterations, but still. So this is just in case. So now I'm gonna cut this and along this line, and then we're going to turn it. Okay, so I quickly cut out this pattern. This is the piece I just got loose. And now I'm gonna have to tape it matching the new line I drew. And as you can see, that creates a gap in the bottom here. And that's what I was talking about earlier, that if you take something out, piece of the pattern, it has to go somewhere. So that's where it's going. And in this case, that would mean I'd have more room on the hips. Now I don't need more room on the hips, so I'm gonna correct that. First, I gotta tape this. Okay, so I taped it from the back of the pattern piece instead of the front, just because that means I can still draw over these lines. So now I'm gonna take this piece, recreate this shape on the bottom here. I think it's actually going to be easier than I expected it to be. Because my pattern paper is see-through, I can just draw on these lines and it will be fine. I don't need to lengthen it because this piece is also going to get shortened. So that's going to be fine, and then I just can cut it. This sounds a little bit too easy and I'm really scared I'm going to do something. I should probably do a mock-up, but I really don't want to, so we're not going to do it. I just realized this is just a rectangle. I could have cut something off of the bottom. Whatever, this works too.
After all of that, I could finally start on actually making the corset. I always find that in the process of corset making, the fitting and patterning takes up way much time than actually making the thing, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Like I mentioned before, I'm making the corset out of a cotton coutil, which is specifically made for corset. It's a really tightly woven fabric with a herringbone pattern, which minimizes any warping that might happen over time. As you can see, I am cutting the fabric on the fold, which I actually wouldn't recommend when it comes to making corsets. It's really important to get the grain line right for every piece, so usually you'd want to cut a single layer. However, cutting the fabric is my least favorite step of the sewing process, and I felt confident enough in the fabric to cut it out double layer anyway. Usually you would also want to draw on your actual seam lines instead of just relying on the seam allowance to get that right. But again, I didn't want to do that. And I think this worked out fine, so do with that what you will. Here you can see me realize that my bobbin had run out, but it was at the very edge of my seam. So after a little celebration, and with the blessing of the sewing gods, I continued on my merry way. everyone's favorite step, pressing your seams. I think my biggest glow up as a sewist came when I actually started doing that. It's especially important here, as I want to do felt seams. With felt seams, the seam allowance are ironed to one side, in this case towards the back. The seam allowance on the bottom is cut to a little under a centimeter and the others folded over it, encasing the raw edges. You can see this a lot on jeans. I want to try this out on a corset because it would not only hide the raw edges, but also create a boning channel at the same time, minimizing bulk and waste. I've done it before on a jean skirt, but this was a whole different beast.
Okay, I got.
So the audio in this part sucked, so you'll have to do with voiceover, Daphne. I sewed down the seams and they weren't as neat as I'd hoped they would be, especially around the bust. I also had some tension issues on my machine. They weren't anything major, but they weren't perfect. My perfectionism didn't like it and still doesn't, but it's a corset, it's underwear, no one is going to see it. And this was good practice with felt seams. I haven't done them a lot of times, and doing felt seams on breast curves is actually really difficult. So after that, I just had to add the boning, add the bias tape at the bottom and the top, and then add holes in the back, and I'd be good to go.
Okay, I've been putting in the boning, and I realized I forgot to put a boning channel in the middle of the front panel, which is sort of essential. So it's a bit of a mess because I've already closed it off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a piece of twill tape here to act as boning channel. I'll just sew the underside closed with the bias tape that I'm going to do on the bottom. And then for the top, I'm going to have to close it with hand stitching, which is not ideal, but I don't want to unpick this bit. That's going to be a nightmare. Wish me luck.
Wat hoor je nou? All the eyelets.
I gathered all my eyelets. There might still some be left in the carpet, but I think I've got most of them. Then I used the eyelets to figure out what spacing I wanted for the lacing holes. You can measure this, but I just do it by eye nowadays. And after a quick cuddle with my dog, I went on to actually put in the eyelets. I used to hate this process, but since I've got this handy dandy eyelet presser, it goes so smoothly. It's amazing. Highly recommend. Off camera, I added flossing to the boning channels. I tried to record this, but the angle was terrible, so I'll spare you that, but trust me, I did it. Then all that was left to be done was put in the lacing, and the corset was finished.
She's finished! I'm really happy with her, even though there are some tiny details that I would have done differently, but oh well. There is one major issue though, and you might have noticed this in the reveal, but the lacing back is way too big. I'm not sure what happens. I have a couple of ideas. First of all, I think that I took too much out of the back panels. I took out about 6 centimeters, and I don't think I should have taken out more than 5. The other issue is I think that my mock-up fabric is more stretchy than is couture. Couture overall just doesn't stretch at all, and I bought the canvas specifically for corset mock-ups, but that was several years ago, and looking at it now, it's quite loosely woven. So I think that's where the problem comes from. Part of me wants to make an entirely new corset just to fix all of these tiny things, but that's just not in the budget. That's not going to happen. But also don't be surprised if at some point you see another corset. As I said, I also have to make a corset for Iris. I have to fit that on her. So if that's something you would be interested in seeing, let me know and I'll record that and talk more about how I fit a corset, especially on another body type. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. As soon as my materials arrive, I can work on the next part of this project, which of course I'll record again. If you want live updates, you can follow me on Instagram, or you can subscribe to the channel and get notified when there's a new video. Until then, bye!